Heyo, and welcome back to Vanquish. We're in part 2 now, and this is where the actual story is going to start. I sort of awkwardly scrambled my way through the tutorial part with all the different gameplay elements that we'll be seeing, but now we're actually starting the story proper. And I'll say during the cutscenes, I'm not going to be quite as anal as I was with like Beyond Two Souls of just shut up, let the characters talk. But there will be a fair few times where I sort of keep myself stum, keep it down and just let the game speak for itself, because, there's lots of actual action in the game where I'll be able to actually talk about shit. But some of these cutscenes are like fucking phenomenal, so I just kind of want to show it off to the best way possible, really. But this is all like establishing shots, so got the standard sci-fi fare of showing loads of equipment, loads of machinery, cutting between shots of random day-to-day life on Earth, which is kind of a guarantee that all these people who are there are going to get blown the fuck up. Like, you can just see the setup now, that's what it's leading to. He's doing it in the typical sci-fi over-dramatization, but you can kind of see where it's going. Bye bye, San Fran. So this is like where the black aliens start coming from the sky, right? But, like, all the phones are dangerous. Was that like a fucking, like, McDonald's drink or like, some fast food drink he had that suddenly became electric? I don't think that's how it works. Like, maybe if it was a phone or something, I'd have bought it, but I don't know. This game, it's got some bloody stuff going on now. It's not really that gory of a game overall. I think they're just using this more for shock impact, just to kind of show how extreme this attack is. That's obviously tomato ketchup blood that we just saw come from that guy there who got crushed. And I will say that technically speaking, the cutscenes are where this game kind of suffers a little bit, like in terms of the port. Because the port on the whole, as I was gushing over in the first part, it's incredibly solid, but as seems to be the case with a handful of PC ports, for some reason, like, the cutscenes, every now and then you get a bit of, like, stutter. Like, every now and then you get some frame drops and maybe it will slow down a bit. Like, it's nothing major. It's nothing to, like, write against the port. But it's enough to stand out. It's enough to be noticeable. But one little fact about the port that I missed in the first part is that it's handled by Little Stone Software. I don't know much else about that developer, but, like, they're the ones who handled the port for this game, like the Windows port.
There is but one way to prevent the destruction of New York City.
So this Russian dude here is the big bad. I'm going to constantly forget his name and refer to him as the Russian dude because I am terrible with names. Same with the president here. I'm going to forget her name and she's just going to be the American president. Like, I will say that these guys, they are like the stereotypical sci-fi, that sort of genre kind of politicians that you see. We've got the enemy guy who seems a bit crazy, not crazy, he isn't like some loony or anything, but he seems quite power hungry, like he's trying to bully the US into, what his words, complete unconditional surrender. So we've got that, and the fact that he's behind that warning shot on San Fran that we saw like earlier on. He's the scary guy, and the US president is the one from supposedly the voice of justice, and like the overplayed caricature like that.
We believe the operation is being led by a red known as Zaitsev. Oh yeah.
But here's more of our actual main cast. Our protagonist here is Sam Gideon, as we established in the tutorial. He's the one who's got the new suit and it does all cool shit. And the other guy here with the mechanical arm, that's Burns. And he's the obligatory team dickhead.
Sam, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but your new friends don't seem too fond of you.
In terms of the tech, it seems to mainly be those shots of Elena there that seem to suffer the most from frame drops. I'm not sure whether it's like the change of scene, although that wouldn't really make sense given I'm pretty sure these are just video files that are being played, so it doesn't really make sense for them to be lagging more than the other shots. But I don't know, maybe it's doing something more complex behind the curtain that I don't know about. I'm not an expert in this. And he's the doctor research guy. He was also, if I recall correctly, the voiceover guy in the tutorial. He only really shows up a couple of times, but he's still quite important to the plot, so I guess pay attention to Professor Candide.
Place. Hell, even this suit runs on his energy designs. He's too valuable to kill.
I know.
This the toy you've been working on?
It's time for some confrontation.
Not even scratched. You did.
Man, those are some fucking huge scars that Ben's got in his face there. Jesus Christ.
They did quite a number on you, huh? We could use you as a test subject at DARPA.
Oh boy. Now, I do like this introductory scene with Sam and Burns' first meeting because these two are incredibly exaggerated characters. Sam is the cool new dude on the team. He's just smoking and he don't give a shit and got all the new toys to play with. And Burns is the old-fashioned, I guess, on sort of a power trip. Not really, but got that sort of attitude to him. Just seeing that initial confrontation, they're the two main team members who we're going to be spending time with, so it's a really cool way of bringing them in. But this first mission here, landing, this bit of gameplay here, it's not even worth it. This corridor is it, by the way. Once we get to the end here, we're going back straight away back into cutscene, and that's it for the mission. After this, when we get to the next bit of gameplay, it will be straight on to mission 2. In case you don't know, DARPA, the little squad that Sam is from, are the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which they are an agency of the US's Department of Defense, and they're the more tech-oriented side of it. Like, I'm not going to claim to know too much about US intelligence because anything I say will probably be bullshit, but they're like the guys who essentially the R&D for new tech equipment, which should be used by the military for battle, for maybe not intergalactic battle just yet. I don't know. There's maybe some things locked up in Area 51 that I don't know about. That's getting into conspiracy territory there, which I'm not one to shy away from. I like to think way too hard about things, but not just yet. Not yet. We're just still establishing things right now. But I will say this game's tone is one that I'm not sure what to make of it, or at least I have an impression of this game's tone that I don't think it's 100% sincere. Like, it's got all the groundworks and all the set pieces for a typical cool, dramatic, trying to do a film kind of thing, but I think they're intentionally overplaying it a little bit. I don't think it's parody. It's not parody, like, they're not making fun of it. But I think there's a humorous perspective behind the creation of this. It's one that's quite hard to pin down. Like, it's sort of a pastiche kind of thing where they know what they're doing and they're like ticking every possible checkbox on the trope list, but not doing it straight. It's quite a complicated thing to explain, but I just think the way that it's so by the numbers, yet not in a bland way. It's an inspired by the numbers approach to this like setting. All the mise en scène is there, the characters are there. Like everyone's got that sort of deep voice, and it's really macho to a certain degree. And yeah, I think they know exactly what they're doing here. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Is like I say, it's a difficult thing to pin down. Like, you could probably read this completely sincerely. Like, I'm not saying this is the kind of thing where it's too ridiculous to make sense, because no, if you take this at face value, it's still a good, enjoyable story. I just think there's an extra layer to it than that. And maybe that dude needs to learn to drive. Bear in mind, this game came out in 2010, and that's when all the cutscenes would have been worked on that time leading up to that. I will say they do actually hold up really well. Maybe some of the textures are a little bit flat by today's standards, and I guess the colour variance isn't all it could be. Like, maybe, I think nowadays they would shy more towards a bit more contrast, but on the whole, this looks really cool. And you see like all the boosting around. That's something I'll get into more, like I promised in the first part, once we start getting into actual proper gameplay. Right now, but yeah, like the cutscenes do still hold up well enough for what they are, and I'd say basically every cutscene in this game, outside of the conversation with Elena, are action scenes. So yeah, it does what it needs to do. But that boost ability that we saw as I was just sliding under the fence there, that is one of the things that sets this apart from other third-person shooters to me. And that's purely because of the element of speed that it brings to the gameplay. Because, yeah, the gameplay is very much a case of you shoot the dudes, you go to cover, you move along a bit, you shoot the next batch of dudes, then you find cover there. Like, yeah, that is all there. And that's the sort of thing that sort of puts me off of a lot of third-person shooter games here. But because here, there's always this sense of movement. There's not really a point where you're just, you know, walking along or hiding for too long at a time. Admittedly, I didn't really bring this up at the best point, given I'm showing off the turrets here, but even then, you don't have to use the turrets. You get a really good loadout of weaponry in this game. I will only be using a small portion of them because I've found a little lineup of weaponry that works really well for me, and it's not quite complete yet. To start the game with, I'm using the two different grenades you get. One of them's like a stun grenade and the other one's a frag, which are on that little thing at the bottom right, the little part of the HUD. That's the part on the left. On the top, we've got the sort of heavier machine gun, which you don't get as much ammo to a clip, but you can do some serious damage. Like, if you look at how quickly I was taking out that red guy there, you know, I took him down really quickly, and now I'm gonna jack his mech, so fuck him. You know, he's dead. But yeah, so we've got the heavy machine gun, and my main weapon, my favourite weapon in this game, is the one on the right, the default weapon really, which is the assault rifle. And that is because it is very much a spray and pray kind of game, in that you just keep shooting. As long as you're shooting or boosting, then you're playing the game right. And that's a weapon that you'll always, or at least most of the time, have plenty of ammo for. And you've got like a little bit of leeway, so because there's a lot of ammo on the clip, you can just sort of start shooting and aim up as you go, rather than have to line yourself up and then shoot, just to avoid wasting ammo. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, that's my play style. Like, some people might see it as a bit spammy. I do, but I do it anyway because I'm a scrub. But this kind of game, it just works well with that gameplay style. To me, it's just satisfying. Just to, you know, like, as long as, like, I'm always shooting, I'm always doing something cool. So yeah, that's the main weaponry. The one that I'm going to change out, if you see at the bottom of the HUD there, I have a shotgun. And the shotgun, given a lot of the times you're going to be behind cover and shooting, it's not really that useful. Like, it can help out in a pinch if you get closer to the guy than you thought you were going to. No, maybe you just haven't realised the guy coming up or something, I don't know. Like, it can be useful, but in those situations, once I replace it with the weapon I'll be replacing it with later, you don't really need it, because if you remember from the tutorial, we do have that melee attack. And I will say the melee's not ideal, because, you know, it triggers that overheat state. And once you're in that overheat state, then you've got to be a bit careful, just because when you've got that, you kind of can't trigger your AR mode, so you can't really get an aim on stuff. But, like I say, the shotgun here and the melee, once I've got rid of the shotgun, it will solely be in a pinch kind of like usage. So it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. If I'm getting bombarded by about 30 of the fuckers, then I'm gonna die, clearly, but yeah, that's not gonna happen too often. This run in itself, it's not gonna be a perfect run, and the reason for that is I'm just not amazing at third-person shooter games. Even after the practice run that I've done with this one, I'm still a little bit all over the place with it. I'm not the most careful, as you've probably established. I idiotically run into the crossfire sometimes, which doesn't help my case. So there will be some parts where if you either see a crossfade or I get to the end of the mission and the result screen comes up and it says 6 deaths or something stupid like that, then it's either one of two situations. What it'll be is either I acted like a prat and got shot and killed and I just edited around that, or the other thing, which is probably more likely throughout the game, because I haven't recorded everything, but from where I'm up to so far, where maybe something didn't go quite as smoothly as I would have liked. And what I tend to do there is just deliberately reset. And because this game is like a continuous narrative, like without that many sweet edit points, sometimes I just have to throw in a crossfade. And it's not the smoothest thing ever, but I'm trying to be less anal about my playthroughs these days, so we'll see how it goes until I have my inevitable breakdown, because it's not perfect. But in all seriousness, like, it's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes I have to get a bit creative with me cuts. But hey, it's better that than leaving the deaths in on screen and wasting everyone's time. Right now we're seeing the benefit of having the heavy machine gun weapon, because them big fuckers, like the small red enemies, they go down easy enough. The sort of just grunt mook enemies, they're just like a few shots with the AR and they're dead. Whereas the big ones, they have quite a lot more health. This guy's trying to sneak up behind me, but I caught him. You see, it's taking much longer to take him down, and so the general strategy here is to do the thing where you lock on and then, or not lock on, but you look down the sight and then do a roll, and that puts you into the AR mode, which just slows down time, like some cool chaos control shit or something. And you go into that, and then just go onto the heaviest fucking weapon you got and wail on him. That's my strategy, at least. It's not actually long now before we get to the first boss of the game, I guess. I don't know whether I'd categorise it as a boss or a mini-boss, but it's coming up. But we do get another sort of shoot everyone sort of scene. And what this reminds me of, and this might be quite a random thing for it to remind me of, given I know I'm not as experienced with shooters as I might be, but I just remember, what was the equivalent of the halt mode from Halo 3 ODST, where it'd be a survival thing. You see how long you can last before all the grunts and elites and all their various weaponry, all the Covenant guys would defeat you, and it's like a survival game kind of thing. I know Gears of War had a thing called Horde mode, which was what a lot of people compared it to at the time. I remember the name Horde, I don't remember what that particular Halo mode was called, but that's the one I spent a lot of time with, and I think they brought it back in Reach as well. But that's what it reminds me of, just purely because, like, there's the big rushes of enemies during them sections where they're calling reinforcements.
Argus robot that's been at the center of the arms control debate.
But here's the boss! And this guy, I will say, he sure as fuck knows how to make an entrance. Like, look at this.
I think I'm gonna need a bigger gun.
Yeah, you are, Burns.
It's a monocoque design.
And that's one thing that you might notice as a recurring trend throughout this game, in that your allies are incredibly disposable. There'll be so many times where, either due to my negligence in-game or just the story in the cutscenes, a lot of your guys are going to die. And you have to separate the emotions here, because yes, they have families. Yes, you know, they have lives to live. They had aspirations and dreams, but they're going to get thrown away like they're nobody. That will be brought up a little bit in the story, like subtly, not like the main focus, but it will be brought up, but it's still quite a distinct thing that I noticed. But these mechs here are the Argus mechs. They're a recurring mini-boss. They'll be used in like different situations throughout the game. They've got a fair few different attacks at their disposal. The main ones are like the guns on the face, the big fuckers that he's shooting at me. The approach to take these down is they have weak points, and essentially you're triggering phases here, because the first phase is just take out the core. Once you've shot down the core, then like this phase will die and he'll sort of evolve into his next phase. And the next phase is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Because like this phase, you can see it's already dead. Like there, it's dead. Whereas now what he's going to do is, you notice how all the joints are glowing. This is one of them games where if you see something glowing, you can probably shoot it. It's probably a weak point. This little fireworks display is really fucking cool, by the way, just as an aside. But what you need to do in phase 2, once he evolves, is you've got to start aiming for the actual body joints.
Initiated its transformation. Most likely to connect to its generator and fire its large radius laser.
So yeah, he's gonna put his hand in the fucking way, but just general rule of the game is each one of his limbs can be taken out individually. The best thing to do, the best approach, is aim for one. Just aim for one. Like right now I'm trying to take his arm off. Once his arm goes down, that will expose the core again. Like the core, if you remember from the first phase, his main weak point. So it's like, get rid of the limb, then aim towards the core, and that is how you take him down. Like right now I'm having to get a bit creative because his arm was hidden. Sometimes you can do that, like if you want to start, there's no reason why you can't just take down different parts of him and it will make the next phase easier. It's what I do sometimes if the one I was initially aiming for isn't immediately available. But it does surprise me how weak the core is relative to the limbs, because it seems like the core, maybe it's just because of the HUD to the UI, but it seems like I'm doing more damage to the core than I was to like his arms and his head. I don't know. And yeah, be careful for the aftershock as well, because that can trip you up. Like that little aftershock thing, now I've got the patch that's not going to kill you. That fucked me over a lot when I was playing before the patch, and I was taking like 4 times the damage, and I'd get stunned after he'd shoot, and you know, that'd be really fucking frustrating. Now I've got a little bit more leeway, thankfully. But this is where it gets to the sort of stuff that Platinum have become known for a lot nowadays. The spectacle of things, because we've done our typical introductory to the boss, and we get a really fucking cool drama sequence. You know, QTEs, like, they're overplayed, but they're really cool when you get some cool visuals on it. Granted, does say this doesn't have as many as, say, Metal Gear Rising. Because that game, if you remember, there's a scene earlier on where Raiden's just running down the side of a fucking building with his blade, and that like outshines anything we do in this game. But still, these are pretty spectacular in their own right. But this is a really irritating phase when you got that little bit of health left in a thing that's covered, and I've got to take out another limb before I can take it out. But you know, the Argus fight on the whole, it's a good intro mini boss. And yeah, that's it down. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was part 2 of Vanquish. Join me next time where we'll be continuing with the first act, and we'll see some more cool shit then. See you next time.